Good morning. Let's do split quarter square triangles today. I'm going to show you two ways how to make split quarter square triangles, which is this unit right here. So if you're new here, I'm Kate. Welcome to my sewing room, and let's get going. Just a comment about this quilt block. This pattern is called Autumn Beauty. It is a free pattern on my website. You can go there, the link is below, and that will take you directly to the blog post where you can read about this block and download a free pattern of it. This pattern uses the split quarter square triangles, which we are talking about in this video. Let's first talk about the tools that we're going to use. We've got a need for our cutting mat, a ruler, a marking device, plus our rotary cutter, and a pressing tool, so either a seam roller or an ironing mat. So to make these quarters or split quarter square triangles, we got to start with half square triangles. So in my Autumn Beauty pattern, we use 2 at a time method to make half square triangles. Starting by on the wrong side of one square, I'm going to mark a line diagonally down the middle, layer that right sides together with the other piece, and we're going to sew 1/4 inch on either side of the line that we've drawn in order to make 2 half square triangles. So I'm going to take that over to the machine and do that. We'll bring it back. Coming back, you can see I've got a seam sewn 1/4 inch on either side of that line that I just marked. Going to cut them apart on that drawn line and then press the seam however the pattern says to do so. So in this case, I'm pressing open. I'm going to leave the other one to the side for now so I can show you what we're going to do. Need to trim 2 sides. So trimming a half square triangle, on your ruler there should be a diagonal 45-degree line marked onto it. Directly from a corner is the best way to go about this. So I'm going to line up this line. Oops, don't need to turn that on right now. Right on the middle seam there. And I'm going to trim these to 4.5 inches square. So with that diagonal on there, I'm going to make sure that I'm within my 4 inches. Sorry, 4 inches square here. I'm going to make sure I'm within 4 inches so I have room to trim on all 4 sides. Then flip it around. I'm going to line up on this side 4 inches and 4 inches, again with that diagonal line right down the seam. So I have a half square triangle. Now when we get to making these split quarter square triangles, we can do it either one at a time or 2 at a time. So I'm going to show you 1 at a time first. I've got half square triangle, and then my other piece, which is going to split it into 2. Again, on the back side, on the wrong side, I've marked a diagonal line all the way down. I'm going to layer that on top so that that diagonal line is running perpendicular to the seam on the half square triangle. You can pin them together so they stay in place and don't slip. And now I'm going to sew directly on that line in order to make 1 split quarter square triangle unit. All right, for 1 at a time, before we get too excited about trimming these, it matters which side we trim on. So if I trim this side of it, this is what my final unit is going to look like. However, if I trim this side of it, these two colors are flipped. So it is very important to pay attention to your pattern to see which side you actually need to trim. Otherwise, you're going to be left with the colors opposite of where you need to go, and then you're going to have to make another one. In this case, this is the way I want it to lay. So I'm going to move it and trim the opposite side. So I am left with a split quarter square triangle. So again, press those seams, and then you've got to trim it to size. Now, trimming a split quarter square triangle is a little bit different. When you do 1.5 or 1 at a time, it's already basically going to be at your size. So you're not going to have anything to trim unless you press open and you've got a dog ear to deal with. Moving on now to 2 at a time. So just as before, we've got our half square triangle and our additional piece. When we make them 2 at a time, we're going to end up making both orientations so that one is going to have color 1, color 2, and the other one's going to be exactly the opposite. So just like before, we're going to draw our line down the back of our third piece of fabric. They should be the same size, and we're going to line up that line that we just drew so that it is perpendicular to the seam. Then we're going to pin it together, and just like when we made 2 at a time half square triangles, 2 at a time split quarter square triangles, we're going to sew 1/4 inch on either side of the line that we just draw to create 2 seams. All right, here we are. 1 seam on either side of the drawn line, and just as before, we're going to cut on the line, like when we did 2 at a time half square triangles, cut on the line to create 2 units. We'll press them. And now here you can see that they are different orientations of those 2 colors that were in your original half square triangle here. Trim to size, and trimming is a little different than it is with a half square triangle itself. So we're going to start first by lining up that diagonal on the line. However, that point you want to be in the exact middle of your unit, because you want this to also be basically to run at a 45-degree angle from the edges of your square. So in this case, we're trimming to 3.5 inches square. So I'm going to make sure this is lined up on the seam, and then I like to make sure that point is crossing the other intersection, and that middle point is more or less in the middle. So halfway in the middle of 3.5 inches is going to be 1 3/4 inches. So it should be lined up right there at 1 3/4 inches and 1 3/4 inches. And we're going to trim the edges. Flip it around. The second half's a little bit easier. So we're just going to line up, make sure we're on the line, and make sure we're lined up at 3.5 and 3.5. And away we go. So 2 at a time. This one still needs to be trimmed. And 1 at a time. And there we go. We got split quarter square triangles. And there we are. So we've got split quarter square triangles done 2 ways. 1 at a time and 2 at a time. You get 1, you get 2 that have different orientations of the fabric. So you can go forth and include these in your block. And in this case, you can see that we're using them in pairs so that the different orientations are both used in equal amounts in this block. And there you go. If you like this video, Please like it and subscribe and tell your friends, and I will be seeing you soon. So happy quilting!